Honorable Kakale.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thank you, colleagues. I'm Honorable Shobalala Kakale, member representing Bodinga and Future. I'm from supportable issue. I rise to present a petition for urgent intervention to avoid great injustice in the Nigerian Postal Service with respect to Officer and Service number 35507. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Kakale, your petition. Any other petition?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues. I am Honorable Haruna Isa Deri, representing RI Program Constituency, Mr. Speaker of Kano State. I have, Mr. Speaker, 5 petitions to present. One is from D. Rogers Chambers on behalf of the Association of Local Government Marriage Registrars in respect of certain actions allegedly infringing their constitutional rights. The second one, Mr. Speaker, is from Initiative for Leadership and Economic Watch in Nigeria, seeking for urgent intervention over certain alleged administrative injustice in NICOMSAT. The third one, Mr. Speaker, is from a community association, Aja Omaitan Community, against Chevron Nigeria Limited over oil spillages. The fourth one, Mr. Speaker, is from Akbajenya Community, Apo Village, Gariki, over actions of a certain company unlawfully taking over their farmlands. And the last one, Mr. Speaker, is from Radiance Attorneys and Solicitors on behalf of Mr. Raymond Ugochukwu and 153 others for certain alleged treatment in breach of their fundamental rights by landlords of Ife Obara Residential Cluster. Mr. Speaker, may I seek your leave and the leave of the House to lay the petitions?
Yes, please go ahead. Honorable Umeoji.
Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I am Honorable Chukwuma Umoji, representing the people of Agwata Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I have a petition from one of my constituents, Mr. Kenneth Chubike Odo, against the Niger Insurance PLC for the failure to pay his entitlement due 5 months ago. Mr. Speaker, with your kind permission, may I lay the petition?
Yes, Honorable Moji, please go ahead and lay your petition. Any other petition? All petitions referred to the Committee on Public Petitions. am not aware of any matter of urgent public importance, so we'll move on. Personal explanation, I believe Honorable Victor Mela, you have a personal explanation. Mela, I can't seem to get you. Where are you? Where is that? Yeah, check. That's not it. Honorable Mela, go ahead. Honorable Mela has a personal explanation. I think we should pay attention.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Excellency, Mr. Speaker, distinguished honorable colleagues, my name is Honorable Victor Mela Danzaria. I represent the people of Balanga Plenary Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I'm from Gombe State. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I come under Order 8, Rule 5. I would like to start by saying that national security is a foundation for national growth and development. This is because peaceful nations attract foreign investors, while domestic investors operate freely without apprehension. Mr. Speaker, distinguished honorable colleagues, the fact before us today is the issue of our country, where we found ourselves, issue of insecurity. On this note, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, you may wish to recall that on the floor of this hello chamber, I supported motions raised by the honorable colleagues on an alarming state of insecurity in Nigeria. While I call for the resignation of service chiefs and the regit of our nation's security apparatus, Mr. Speaker, distinguished honorable colleagues, I threaten to resign my membership of the National Assembly if this House, as true representatives of the people, fails to act so as to bring an end to this mindless, senseless killing of innocent Nigerians. Mr. Speaker, distinguished honorable colleagues, I am pleased to say that the leadership of this House within the last few months has taken deliberate and conscious steps to express the dissatisfaction of this honorable House with the level of insecurity in this country. Mr. Speaker, I am aware of your meetings, phone calls with the presidency and the service chiefs. I am also aware of several meetings with Mr. President and on the insecurity issues on our dear country. Mr. Speaker, distinguished honorable colleagues, I am also aware that the House leadership, in its bid to find a lasting solution to the crisis, had paid several interface meetings with the Chief of Defense Staff, Inspector General of Police, Chief of Army Staff, Chief of Air Staff, and Chief of Naval Staff. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, the House Chairman, the House Committee Chairman of Defense, Army, Air Force, Navy, and the police have likewise several meetings with the service chiefs in this regard. Similarly, Mr. Speaker, distinguished honorable colleagues, there has been also several resolutions of this House on the urgent need to curb the incessant killing of innocent Nigerians waiting implementation. Mr. Speaker, today I can boldly and confidently say, through your leadership, this House has done what is constitutionally and legally possible through the various interface meetings with top echelon of our security as well as the nation as well as numerous resolutions passed on the same subject matter of insecurity. Mr. Speaker, distinguished honorable colleagues, I thought Nigerians should know some of the strategic plans that the House of Representatives, since the day I threatened to resign, that they have taken some strategic plan on how to curb the insecurity issues of this nation. We are doing our best as legislators. However, we must enforce and/or ensure the implementation of our resolutions on the insecurity issues in our dear country. Our people are burdened on a daily basis with psychological and emotional trauma resulting from sights of lifeless and mutilated bodies of loved family members and close associates littered on the streets and public square. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, finally, I want to thank this House and thank Mr. Honorable Speaker for your leadership. I believe, in my opinion, for the last few months, the House have done its best to present a strategic plan and resolutions on how to curb the issue of insecurity in this country. It is time for the executive to act. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. If I may just simplify Honorable Mela's personal explanation, I believe a couple of months ago, when we discussed the issue of insecurity, Honorable Victor Mela got up on the floor and said if the House did not do anything, he would resign his membership of the National Assembly. I think since then, from what he explained to me, he has been bombarded by Nigerians asking him why he has not resigned. And I think his statement on the floor was misunderstood. And that is the personal explanation that he has brought. That his statement on the floor went to the issue of fact that if the House of Representatives did not take steps to do anything about insecurity, he would resign. But he has been misunderstood to have said that if insecurity or the executive does not stop the killings, he would resign. That was not what he said, and we have the records. What he said was that if the House did not take steps, and he has now said that the House has taken several steps, and he has listed out the steps. So Honorable Mela shall not resign from the National Assembly. We still need him very much around. He is one of our good legislators here. Thank you. The next business of the day is presentation of report of the Committee on Finance, Appropriation and National Planning and Economic Development on the 2021 to 2023 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper, standing in the name of Honorable James Abiodun Faleke. Honorable members will recall that the matter was referred to the committee on Tuesday, 21st July 2020. The report is ready for presentation. Honorable Faleke is invited to present the report. Prelude to that, let me just quickly say that over the break, these committees were working tirelessly on the MTEF. The reason being that by law, by procedure, MTEF should be presented and approved before the budget is brought to the National Assembly. The MTEF precedes the budget presentation. And the budget, if I may announce to members, I believe will be presented, I think, on the 7th of October, which is about next week. So it's imperative that they've been working in the last 2 months on the MTEF, and I believe the MTEF is now ready for presentation. Go ahead, Honorable Faleke.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues. My name is James Abiodun Faleke. I represent Ikeja Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I rise to move that the House do receive the report of the Committees on Finance, Appropriation, National Planning and Economic Development on the 2021-2023 Medium-Term Expenditure Framework, MTEF, and the Fiscal Strategy Paper. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I so move.
Any seconder? Honorable Idris Kabiru.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My honorable colleagues, I remain Honorable Kabiru Idris, member representing Kura, Modobiga, Malam. Mr. Speaker, I'm from Kano State. I rise to support this very important motion raised by Honorable Falake. I so support, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
All right. Those in support that will lead the report, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. Ayes have it. Honorable Falake, please lay on. First order of the day is commencement of debate on the general principles of a bill for an act to alter the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended, and for related matters, standing in the names of Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila and Honorable Abubakar Hassan Fulata. Honorable members will recall that the bill was read the first time on Thursday, 27 November 2020, and I invite Honorable Fulata to move that the bill be now read a second time. Honorable Fulata.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable colleagues, I am Abubakar Samfulata. I represent Berniwa, Krika Sama, Gudi Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I'm from Jigawa State. Mr. Speaker, I move that a bill for an act to alter the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended and for related matters HB 511 be read the second time. I so move.
Thank you. Any seconder? Honorable Gori Israel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm Honorable Israel Sonigori. I represent Brass Nembe constituency. I'm from Bayelsa State. I rise to second the motion ably moved by colleague Associate Court.
Honorable Fulata, please, can you lead the debate?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable colleagues, this bill seeks to amend Section 89 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended. Essentially, the bill seeks to amend Section 89, subsection 1D, and replace it with the following wordings: to issue a warrant to compel the attendance of any person who, after having been summoned to attend, fails, refuses, or neglects to do so, and does not excuse such failure, refusal, or neglect to satisfaction of the Legislative House or the committee in question. And also further to amend Section 89, subsection 3, and introduce new wordings as follows. Notwithstanding anything to the contrary in this Constitution, any person who, after having been summoned to attend, fails, refuses, neglects to do so, and does not excuse such failure, refusal, or neglect to the satisfaction of the Legislative House or the committee in question, commits an offense and is liable on conviction to such punishment as shall be prescribed by an act of the National Assembly, unquote. And the punishment has already been outlined in the Legislative Section 14, subsection 3 of the Legislative Powers and Privileges Act as amended. And the punishment, and it is as follows. A person who commits contempt of the Legislative House under Section 14 of this bill is liable on conviction to a fine of 500,000 naira or imprisonment for 2 years or both. So in essence, this bill seeks to strengthen the institution of the legislature and insulate it against the humiliations and the embarrassment that it has suffered in the hands of many individuals who, having been summoned, refused to attend, and who have been incapacitated for a long time because no punishment has been, specific punishment has been prescribed in the laws. But now that we are recommending specific punishments and also amending relevant section of the Constitution to criminalize such acts, I think people will take summons from the National Assembly very seriously. I so submit, Mr. Speaker.
Any further contribution? So I believe the matter is straightforward. Honorable members, I believe from your submission, the amendment is to protect the institution from people who otherwise thumb their nose at the institution and do not answer subpoenas. Question is that the bill is now read a second time. Those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. Ayes have it. Clerk is invited to read the long title, please.
Okay, sir. Right. Honorable Speaker, honorable members, a bill for now to alter the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended, and related matters. Second reading.
The bill is referred to this Special Ad Hoc Committee on Review of the 1999 Constitution. Second order of the day is a motion on need to control the Federal College of Education, Umunze Road, standing in the name of Honorable Ogudili Christopher Ezenwankwo. I don't know if Honorable is here. Honorable Ezenwankwo is invited to move the motion. Our motions, can we just read the title and get straight to it, and we won't even bother going into debate because of time, so that we can cover lost ground from yesterday. So, Honorable Ezenwankwo, please move your motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My name is Okudele Christopher Ezawanko. I represent the good people of Orumba North, Orumba South Federal Constituency, Mr. Speaker. I'm from Anambra State. Mr. Speaker, the motion is the need to construct the Federal College of Education Road, Technical Umunze. You all know that there are two major roads from Nkwo Market permanent site, Umunze.
I'll read it now.
And Immaculate Heart Junction, Umunze, leading to the Federal College of Education, Technical Umunze, in Orumba North and South constituency of Anambra State. You also note that the roads are no more than 2 kilometers each and are in deplorable conditions and adversely affecting the movement of staff, students, and visitors to the college. You also again note that standard asphalt road construction has not been carried out on the two major roads since the establishment of the Federal College of Education, Technical Umunze. You are also aware that during every rainy season, even the pedestrians find it difficult to pass through the two identified roads due to an accumulation of heavy mud and waterlogging on the roads. You are also aware that time without number, heavy mud have trapped vehicles on the roads, making it impossible for other road users to gain access to the college. Alarmed that different stages of organic erosion are developing on the roads, threatening to divide the roads at various locations. Concerned that if urgent asphalt road construction is not carried out on the roads, the college will totally cut off from staff, students, and visitors. It has resolved to all the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing to prioritize carrying out standard road construction to the two roads leading to Federal College of Education, Technical Umunze, in Orumba South of Anambra State. Mandate the Committee on Appropriation to make provision for inclusion of construction of the two roads leading to the Federal College of Education, Technical Umunze, in Orumba South of Anambra State in the 2021 budget estimate. Also mandate the Committee on Works to ensure implementation. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Any seconder? Honorable Adebanjo. Honorable Adebanjo is not here. Okay. Minority Leader. You want to second?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I remain Honorable Ndudi Godwin Edubelu, and I represent the good people of our Oshimili Federal Constituency. I'm from Delta State. I rise to second the motion ably moved by my colleague, Honorable Kudile. I so second.
Honorable members, amendment? Okay, before I put the question, Honorable Gani Johnson, you have an amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Abdul Gani Abiadu Johnson. I represent the good people of Oshodi Solo, Federal Constituency 2. I rise to amend prayer 1 of this motion to read, urge the Federal Maintenance Agency, FEMA, to rehabilitate the two roads leading to the Federal College of Education, Technical, Umuazi, in Oruma, south of Anambra State. The reason being that it's an existing road and there is a revolving fund in FEMA that will accelerate the early completion of the road. It's an existing road, so FEMA can quickly tackle that by carrying out a total overlay because it's seeking for asphalt overlay. So FEMA can easily tackle that. It's an existing road. Then the third one is just to mandate the committee on FEMA to ensure compliance.
Any seconder to Honorable Gani Johnson's amendments? Honorable Adebanjo. Okay, you're in the wrong state. Okay. Honorable Luga.
My name is Honorable Taiwo Luga. I represent the good people of Ayedade, Rewole, Shokofera constituency. Mr. Speaker, I am from Osun State. I rise to second the amendment as moved by my honorable colleague. I so second. Thank you.
Those in support of the amendment, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. Those in support of the ayes have it. Those in support of the motion as amended, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. Ayes have it. Second order of the day is, the third order of the day is a motion on urgent need to reconstruct the 25-kilometer stretch Gumel Maigatari, Niger Republic Border Road, Jigawa State, standing in the name of Honorable Nazif Sani. Honorable Sani is invited to move the motion. Honorable Sani, I don't think you're... Okay. Go ahead.
My respected colleagues, my name is Honorable Nazif Sani. I represent Gumel, Megatari Sule and Gagara Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am from Jigawa State. The motion is for the other need to construct the 25-kilometer stretch Gumel, Megatari, Niger Republic Border Road, Jigawa State. The House notes that the Gumel Megatari Road is a federal road which serves the Gumel Megatari communities in Jigawa State and impacts on the citizens economically, linking Nigeria and Niger Republic. Also note that there is a major international market called Megatari market where traders across the country, especially the southeast and the southwest of the country, as well as Niger Republic, to buy agricultural commodities and livestock in large quantity. Worries that the road is in very terrible condition and has become a death trap to both motorists and travelers. Concern that the road leading to the Megatari market, which serves the whole country because of its strategic location, is at the verge of total collapse due to disrepair. Resolved, all the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing to commence the immediate reconstruction of the Gumal Megatari Niger Republic Road. Mandate the Committee on Works and Payment to ensure compliance. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Any seconder? Honorable Bamishile, can you second?
Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker. My name still remains right. Femi Bamishile, representing the Muregbonyi and Ekiti's local government. I hereby second the move as moved by my colleague.
Okay, so it's an infrastructure motion. We'll just put the question. Those in support, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. Ayes have it. Honorable Kuye, the fourth order of the day is a motion on need to investigate the purported concessioning of airports in Nigeria, standing in the name of Honorable Ademola Kuye. Honorable Kuye is invited to move the motion. Is Honorable Kuya here? Chairman, yes.
The mic, sir. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Kuye has approached me asking that he wanted to step down the motion. So I move that the motion be stepped down by the leave of the House, Mr. Speaker. I so move.
Motion step down. The fifth order of the day is a motion on the need to investigate the gruesome murder of a popular traditional medical practitioner, Alhaji Fatai Yusuf, aka Oko Oloyun, standing in the names of, thank you, Baba Ilabe, standing in the names of Honorable S. Ajibola Muraino and 12 others. Honorable Muraino is invited to move the motion.
Mr. Speaker, Honorable Muraina is not on the floor. I move that the motion be stepped down by the leave of the House. I so move.
Motion step down. Sixth order of the day is a motion calling for the establishment of military base to combat banditry attacks in Shiroro, Rafu, Munya local government areas of Niger State, spilling into Kafinkoro, Ishau, and Adunu wards, under Boso, Paikoro Federal Constituency, standing in the name of Honorable Shehu Barwa Beji, and one other member. Honorable Shehu Barwa is invited to move the motion.
Honorable Speaker, my honorable colleagues, my name is Shehu Barwabeji. I represent the people of Boso, Paikoro Federal Constituency of Niger State. This motion I rise to propose is co-sponsored by my honorable colleague, Said Udoka. We share the same boundary, we are neighbors, and we have similar problems. I'll continue. The motion being call for the establishment of military base to combat banditry attacks in Shoro, Rafimunya local government areas of Niger State, spilling into Kafinkoro, Ishau, Adunu wards under Boso Pakoro Federal Constituency. The House knows that Shoro Rafimunya Federal Constituency is comprised of 3 local government areas, 2 of which are geographically bound by Boso Pakoro Federal Constituency of Niger State. Also note that recent recurrent attacks in Rafi and Shoro local government areas of Niger State, where lives and properties are being lost by the day. Aware that the operational structure of the Nigerian military requires urgent reforms, recalls that barely few days ago, the nation lost one of her military commanders and 3 other officers of the Nigerian Army at battlefield. Concerned that on 24th September 2020, a social media outlet, Sahara Reporters, reported the troops of the Nigerian Army are furious at the authorities for not recognizing 1 other soldiers killed along with Dairu Bako, a colonel and commander of Sector 2, Operation Lafi Adole, the team combating terrorism in the northeast region of the country. Disturbed that such utter disregard and the respectful gesture meted out to the bereaved families of junior fallen heroes is demoralizing the gallantry spirit of our soldiers at the battlefields. Worried that despite all efforts to curb banditry activities in affected areas of Niger State, the situation had continued to escalate to the extent that the farmers have completely been severed from farming activities, which is the mainstay of their economy. Also concerned that even the Federal Capital Territory, where national and international businesses are conducted, is no longer safe, as there have been reported cases of kidnappers, banditry activities within the FCT. Further concerned that the rate of killings across the nation, which is now spilling into the Federal Capital Territory, is breeding a global embarrassment, depicting how less prepared, again, in terms of security. Recalls that on 24th September 2020, the Vanguard newspapers reported that some members of the United Kingdom's House of Lords, the British Upper Legislative Chamber, have petitioned the Commonwealth over the persistence of insurgency and farmer herder crisis in Nigeria. Worried that given the proximity of the affected communities and some parts of Pakoro local government areas, the banditry attacks have sometimes spilled into Kafinkoro, Ishau, and Adunu wards under Boso Pakoro federal constituencies. Disturbed that in the month of December 2019, the Niger State Caucus of the House of Representatives joined a contingent of stakeholders from Niger State to the presidency, where the same problem of banditry and kidnapping was the front-burning issue discussed with the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Yet, the killings continue. Again, note that in view of the recent recurrent attacks, there have been outcries for establishment of military bases in the affected areas, but the President only ordered for deployment of military men to cover those communities, which has not changed anything. Observe that sporadic approach to the situation at hand is no longer effective, as it is now more persistent than ever. Also observe that with the dwindling oil prices, as well as closure of borders, agrarian economy ought to be the nation's major fallback. Yet, our villages are no longer safe for farming. Also aware that the deficit in farming activities resulting from incessant attacks in those areas will further aggravate poverty and hunger in the country, thereby breeding more crime within the clans. Again, observe that from the sophistication of the banditry attacks, anything short of establishing military bases in the affected areas is futile exercise, because when soldiers are around, the bandits go into hiding. But the moment soldiers leave, they launch attacks again. Hence, the need for permanent military structures in the vulnerable areas. Worry that the unjustifiable retention of the service chiefs may be the cause of the lingering problem, as their defensive strategies seem to be obsolete, and most of them have outwit the grown of their. My glasses, please. Let me take again. Worry that the unjustifiable retention of the service chiefs may be the cause of the lingering problem, as their defensive strategies seem to be obsolete and must have outgrown further learning. Whether that if the federal government failed to establish military base in the areas under reference, the entire constituency may be lost in the nearest future, or the people will have to resort to self-help. Alarmed that the state of insecurity has reached its highest crescendo, that if not urgently addressed, Nigeria may dangerously go the way of Rwanda, Somalia, etc. Resolve to: 1. Mandate the Committee of Army to facilitate the establishment of the permanent military bases in the affected areas. 2. Urge the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to fast-track dissolution of the Nigerian service chiefs and appoint new ones with fresh strategies for combating insecurity. 3. Also urge the Nigerian National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, to urgently send relief materials to the victims of the affected areas. Honorable Speaker, my honorable colleagues, with the above, I have so moved this motion on behalf of myself and Honorable Said Doka of Tororo, Paikoro Federal Constituency. Thank you.
Any seconder? Who's that? Press your mic. I need you to press your mic. You're not pressing your mic. Put on your... Okay. And the leader of the House says that you share, your constituency shares the same border as Doga, so you are not too familiar with the workings.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Honorable Mohammed Bargaja, member presenting East Sabarbini Federal Constituency. I'm from Sokoto State. I stand on the motion raised by Honorable Sheikh Bawa. Mr. Speaker, I so second it.
Okay, before I put the question, there's an amendment. Chairman Army, you had an amendment. You had an amendment.
Honorable Speaker, Honorable colleagues, my name is Abdulrazak Namdas. I represent the people of Kenya, Jada, Chandama, Zala. I am from Adamawa State. Mr. Speaker, I just want to amend prayer number 2. In fact, delete prayer number 2. Because the prayer says, all the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to fast-track dissolution of the Nigerian service chiefs and appoint new ones with fresh strategies for combating insecurity. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that we have a resolution already in this House that has called for the dissolution, for the change of the service chiefs that has already been on ground. So this prayer saying that we should fast-track is like we are taking a new one and directing the President to do so immediately. I think our prayer and resolution still stand. So I want to suggest that that prayer should be deleted because we have made so many resolutions on the dissolution of the service chiefs. I so amend, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, right honorable colleagues, my name is Honorable Khadija Waziri Bukar Abba Ibrahim. I represent the people of Damaturu, Talmo of Bujibagula in the Federal Constituency of Yobe State. I rise to second the amendment made by Honorable Namdas. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Before I put the question, Honorable Toby, what was the issue?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues. Mr. Speaker, I think the prayer as proposed by our colleague, actually the problem is in the wording, not as a matter of the previous resolution we passed. Because he is asking Mr. President to fast-track a resolution already passed by Parliament. And what I believe is that it should read not dissolution, because you don't dissolve service chiefs. You are asking people that they should observe the law by retiring. And the House has judiciously and properly passed a resolution to that effect. He is asking the House to reinforce that previous resolution, that this should be fast-tracked. I believe that the amendment being proposed does not address the question he raised. He said he should fast-track House resolution. Thank you.
Okay, well, procedurally there's an amendment on the floor, so we are not really supposed to debate amendments as such. So if we have anything against it, we'll just put a question and you can either agree or disagree on the amendment. So Honorable Namdas has an amendment to expunge the particular clause talking about fast tracking. Those in support, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. Ayes have it. Honorable Toby, the leader of the whole house, is talking to you. Leader of the whole house, Honorable Toby. The seventh order of the day. Okay, that was the amendment. Those in support of the motion as amended, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. Ayes have it. Seventh order of the day is a motion on need to investigate the refusal of Access Bank PLC and other banks to call back their 45% staff recently laid off despite the directive from the Central Bank of Nigeria. Standing name of Honorable Chinedu Oga. Honorable Oga is invited to move the motion. Honorable Oga. The mic is not coming on.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm Honorable Comrade Chinedu Oga OM. I represent South People Federal Constituency. I'm from Ebonyi State. I stand to move the motion. The need to investigate the refusal of Access Bank PLC and other banks to call back their 45% staff recently laid off, despite the directive from the Central Bank of Nigeria. I hereby move. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable colleagues, note that the pursuant to the provision of Section 14, subsection 2B of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 99 as amended, the duty of the government includes the security of lives, welfare of the people of Nigeria. Further note that as a part of this duty, the federal government is to control the economy in such a manner as to ensure that the well-being and the happiness of every citizen, as enshrined in Section 16, subsection 1B of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 99 as amended. Aware that the result of the merger of the Access Bank PLC with other banks, with now default Diamond Banks PLC, inherited the asset of liability of Diamond Banks PLC and thereby had a total of 31,987 employees, higher than the pre-merger number of 15,316 staffs. Further aware that the result of this inheritance liability, Access Bank PLC recently dismissed 75% of the staff's population and reduced the salary of the remnants 25% by 40%. Causing that the action of Access Bank and other banks will have a negative impact on the society in terms of increase of crime, lack of unemployment, depression, and probably loss of life. Informed that the Central Bank of Nigeria, in the response and the exercise of its power, as enshrined in Section 16, subsection 1A of the Bank and Other Financial Institution Act, directed Access Bank and other banks to recall all the layoff staffs and provide assistance to Access Bank PLC to cushion the effect of the new liability inherited from other merger. Result: they mandate the Committee of Banks, Currency to investigate why Access Banks and other banks have off staffs after the CBN have given directive and the assistance to the banks to do so and report back within 2 weeks for further legislative action. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable, can you afford the chair for a minute, please? Honorable colleagues, Honorable Oga's motion is a people-driven motion that seeks to look out for the people we represent in terms of job losses, but there seems to be an issue as to the constitutionality of that motion, whether we can force people to retain staff or not. But I'm also understanding that the CBN has also paid Access Bank to retain those people, and that is a Oga's assertion. So what we'll do, rather than put the question, just to be, for clarity, we'll refer this very quickly to the Justice Committee to report back to the House next Tuesday as to the constitutionality of that well-intended motion. Whether or not we can force private organizations to retain staff, and also in view of the fact that Honorable Oga has said that CBN had actually paid this institution to retain their staff. So we'll just, and banking, sorry, very true, banking and justice to please report back to the House on Tuesday. Eighth order of the day is a motion on need for the National Boundary Commission to clearly demarcate the boundary between Nasarawa State and Benue State. Standing in the name of Honorable Abubakar Hassan Nararaba, Honorable Nararaba is invited to move the motion. Nararaba. Yes, go ahead. Mr. Speaker, my highly respected colleagues, this is the motion that is co-sponsored by my humble self, Abubakar Hassan Nararaba, member representing Awaidu Makana,
Federal Constituency, and my able brother Honorable Ben Nzondo, member representing Makodi Guma Federal Constituency. The House notes the devastating effects caused. The motion is all about the need for the National Boundary Commission to cause the demarcation of the boundary between Nasarawa State, Awedo Makana Federal Constituency, and Benue State, Makodi Guma. The House notes the devastating effect caused by interboundary disputes across the country. Also notes that over the years, lack of clearly defined boundary demarcation between the communities of Awedoma and Kiana in Nasarawa State and Guma and Makodi in Benue State has continued to bring complex security and social-economic problems to these communities. The House is aware that before 1910, River Benue was the natural historic boundary line between Nasarawa State and Benue State, and any land from the north bank of the River Benue was in Kiana as well as Awe and Doma. Also aware that between 1910 and 1924, following discussions among colonial administrators and boundary, the boundary was adjusted further inland from the north bank of River Benue through the 1916, 1919, and 1924 instruments of description, which although was registered by the chief of Kiana as early as 1914. Further aware that between 1985 and 1990 to date, discussions among military governors and government officials on the same boundary adjustment yielded no positive results. Yet the indigents of Benue State claiming inland, whereas the 1916, 1919, and 1924 boundary instrument description remains the last known and established Gazette instrument. Cognizant that Section 8 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended provides the procedure to be followed in any case of boundary adjustment. Yet, this express provision has not been explored in addressing the boundary dispute between Nasarawa and Benue State by the relevant stakeholders. Concerned that since 1990, there has been further clearer encroachment into Kiana, Doma, and Awe local government areas by the people of Guma and Makodi in Benue State, hence the lingering crisis involving ethnic groups of Alabu, Fulani, and Tiv. Worried that if urgent steps are not taken to address this incessant dispute, it will further stall socio-economic improvement in the affected economies, in the affected communities, increase violence, loss of more lives, and damage of properties. Resolved to urge the National Boundary Commission and its Nasarawa and Benue State counterpart to immediately commence the demarcation of boundary between the warring communities in order to curb incessant crisis. Mandate the Committee on Special Duties to convene a joint meeting of relevant stakeholders for the purpose of boundary adjustment and demarcation. Mandate the Committee on Legislative Compliance to ensure implementation of the resolutions and report back within 2 weeks for further legislative action. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable colleagues, Aruna Shulmani is my name, representing Dunda Amani. I am from Kansas State. I rise to second the motion, heavily with my friend, Honorable Nalaraba, and I so second. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable. I will just put a question. So we don't know the boundary between Benue and Nasarawa. Is that what the issue is? Huh? What was this issue? The boundary between Nasarawa and Benue? We don't know. And we have that. Honorable John. Honorable John Day. There's a dispute between Benue and Nasarawa in terms of boundary line. You people, you have encroached into Nasarawa state. You complain about people encroaching into your land. You are encroaching into Honorable John. Do you have any contribution to that motion? He was not aware. He was not following. You are not following. It concerns your state. That's a dispute that must be resolved. It must be resolved. It's very good. No. Honorable John, no. You are the one that caused problem in the house yesterday. Sit down, please. Sit down. You are the one that caused problem yesterday. But it's a dispute that we must look into. Two neighbors cannot be fighting. Those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. The ayes have it. This house till the end of the session. The ninth order of the day is consideration of report of the Committee on Finance, Appropriation and National Planning and Economic Development of the 2021-2023 Medium-Term Expenditure Framework and Fiscal Strategy Paper. Honorable members will recall that the report was laid on Wednesday, 30 September 2020. Honorable Abiodun James Faleke will move for its consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues. My name is James Abiodun Faleke. I represent the Ikeja Federal Constituency from Lagos State. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I rise to request that the House do consider the report of the Committees of Finance, Appropriation, National Planning and Economic Development on the 2021-2023 Medium-Term Expenditure Framework and Fiscal Strategy Paper and approve recommendations therein. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I so move.
Romani, please. Second.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Still remain Aminu Ashurmani, representing Bindamani. Mr. Speaker, I am from Kasane State. I rise to second the motion, heavily moved by my colleagues, and I so second. Thank you.
Those in support of the motion, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. Ayes have it. Before we move, before we resort to the Committee of Supply, let me just make this two quick announcements. I have notification here from Otumba Adeumi Oriyomi Ononuga. Yeah, is here. On the 28th of September, dear Honorable Speaker, on the 28th of September 2020, it pleased the KVAC and the Maku Traditional Council, Ewusi and the Maku Traditional Council to bestow on me the title of Yeyoba Ewusi. Maku Shagamu to the glory of God. My gratitude goes to the Right Honorable Speaker, Deputy Speaker, leadership, and respected colleagues for gracing the occasion and their support. Please accept my gratitude and extend same to my honorable colleagues. Warm regards, Honorable Otumba Adeoye Oriyomi Onenuga. How many chieftaincy titles do you have now? Because before now you were Otumba. How many do you have?
By right, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I'm a princess from 3 ruling houses in Makun Shagamu. I was given the title of Otumba from one of the ruling houses in December 26, 2013. And by virtue of my antecedents and my performances in the community, it pleased the king and the traditional rulers of the whole of Remo and Makun Shagamu to bestow on me that title.
Well done. Is that why you are called Ijaya?
No, that's a political title, sir.
Okay. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Congratulations. Okay, this is a follow-up announcement from yesterday. The Joint Executive Legislative Retreat is holding on Monday the 5th to Tuesday the 6th, October 2020, at the Banquet Hall, Presidential Villa, Abuja, by 10 a.m. prompt. Letters of invitation have already been sent to your various offices, and kindly note that buses will depart for the venue by 9 a.m. prompt on each day. That's Monday and Tuesday coming. The buses will be parked by the front entrance of the House of Representatives building. Signed, Honorable Al-Hassan Dogwa, a House Leader. So, honorable members, please note and pass the message on to our colleagues. Monday and Tuesday, joint executive legislative retreat from 9 a.m. The buses will be parked out there. Honorable Leader, can you please move that the House resolve to the Committee of Supply to consider the report?
Thank you. Right Honorable Speaker, honorable members, my name is Honorable Al-Hassan Ado Dogwa. Mr. Speaker, I represent Dogwa Tudunwada Federal Constituency. Honorable members, I'm from Kano State. I rise to move, as directed by the Speaker, that this House do resolve to the Committee of Supply to consider the MTEP report. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I so move.
Those in support, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. Ayes have it. House hereby resolves the Committee of Supply. Honourable colleagues, the report to be considered is that of the Committee on Finance, Appropriation and National Planning and Economic Development of the MTEF. I will now invite Honourable James Abiodun Falike to give synopsis of the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mr. Chairman, honorable colleagues. My name is James Abiodun Falike. I represent Ikeja Federal Constituency. I am from Lagos State. Mr. Chairman, honorable colleagues, you have the main report apart from the recommendations as contained in the other paper. So I will refer you to page 13 of the main report, page 13. Oil price is put at $40 per barrel for 2021 production. The official exchange rate, which was 360 before, is now $379. The official exchange rate. While the GDP growth rate is 3%, inflation growth rate is 11.95%. FGL retail revenue is estimated to be 7.89 trillion. The total FGM proposed expenditure is 13.08 trillion. So it is expected that the budget that will be presented will be based on 13.08 trillion total expenditure. The fiscal deficit is 5.20 trillion, including all the GOEs. New borrowings is expected to be 4.28 trillion, including foreign and domestic borrowing, while the statutory transfers will be 484.49 billion, debt service 3.12 trillion, and sinking fund, of course, is 220 billion. Pension, gratuities, retiree benefits is 520.69 billion. Total FGN expenditure, as said, is 13.08 trillion. Total recurrent, non-debt, is 5.67 trillion. Personnel cost, MDAs plus DOEs, is 3.76 trillion. The capital expenditure, exclusive of transfers, is 3.58 trillion. And special intervention recurrent is 350 billion, while special intervention on capital is 20 billion. These are the parameters as adopted by the committees. Further recommendations are that the House is to mandate the committees on finance, national planning and economic development in partnership with the Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning and the Auditor General of the Federation to conduct a detailed analysis of all ministries, departments and agencies of MDAs funded by the federal government of Nigeria budget to identify more agencies that need to be taken off the budget, wholly or partially, and those that need to be retained to further reduce the deficit burden of the federal budget and free up more resources for other critical projects. We are also recommending that on auto policy, the committee recommends downward review of the levy imposed on imported vehicles to 15% and 20% on both commercial buses and trucks. That the committees recommend enhancement of capacities of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, personnel and technology deployment to boost non-oil revenue collection. That the House do commence the process of amending the Establishment Acts of all revenue-generating agencies to conform with the provisions of the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007. The committee also recommends the amendment of sections 21 and 22 of the FRA to conform with the current circular on expenditure to revenue ratios of 70-30 and 60-40 issued by the executives. 70-30 for big organizations and MDAs and 60-40 for the smaller ones. That the Nigerian Customs Service devise plans and policies to facilitate trade, as the already signed African Continental Force Trade Area will reduce revenue, while collaborations with neighboring countries are improved for increased transnational transborder trade for more IGR by the Nigerian Customs Service. The committee also recommends that the federal government, through its relevant MDAs, be advised to be more proactive in improving the welfare and well-being of citizens and residents in border communities across Nigeria. Finally, the committee recommends that the proposed Finance Act 2019 Amendment Bill to be submitted to the National Assembly by the Executive considers the amendment of sections of Fiscal Responsibility Act to address the lacuna created in the Stamp Duties Administration in Nigeria. This will eliminate losses and needless rivalry amongst MDAs. Mr. Chairman, honorable colleagues, I so move. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Finance. So we'll go straight to the recommendations. The question is that recommendation 1. Point of order. Honorable Toby, what's your point of order?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues. I want to appreciate the work that has been done by the committee. Actually, while we were on vacation, they set the pace on the kind of interaction that should happen with agencies. Mr. Speaker, I do not know from here whether you are reading number 1 from 8.0 or is it 1 from 9.0.
I'm going through the other paper.
If you are going through the other paper, it's 9.0 because the benchmark, the exchange rate, and most of the parameters which will be very consequential to the budget are actually what is in findings and observations. I believe that should actually read the recommendations, because if you are approving benchmark of $40, you are approving benchmark of $40. If you are saying the various parameters that have been, so actually for me, the findings should read recommendations because they are the ones that are very consequential for the budget. Otherwise, if we approve them or consider them as observations and go to recommendations, the benchmark and the other collateral recommendations will not be there.
I'm not quite clear. I think, yeah, Honorable Falike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The observation raised by Our leader is Jamin, sir. There was a communication gap between the rules and business when this document was printed on the other paper. Actually, the findings and the parameters were expected to be on the other papers. That is why I refer the members to pages 13 and the other paper. So the main parameters is what the MTF is all about, which is on page 13. Or we take it, if you, sir? Just 13 to 14, yes. To 15 actually. Yes, those are the main parameters of MTF. The one captured by rules and business is just additional observations to enhance our future revenue. Yes.
So what your point is that the findings should be part of the findings should read recommendations. Let's just make the findings part of the recommendation and then we'll go to the recommendations. Does that make any sense? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, honorable colleagues. I rise to move an amendment to this submission, that is 8.0, to read recommendations A. Recommendations A. And the recommendations on other paper will be recommendations B. I so move.
Honorable Toby, do you want to second that?
Well, Mr. Chairman, since the chairman of the committee has counseled himself by amending, I hereby second.
We should do it like that.
He is agreeing with me.
Okay. But you are seconding his own
Yes, he's agreeing
amendment.
with me because those are the proper tenets.
Okay. So let's see if the House agrees with you. Those in support, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. The House agrees with you. The ayes have it. So, Honorable Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, honorable colleagues, Chairman Panos. I commend you for your report. I'm sorry, I went out to pray. I don't know before I came back whether you have explained what I am trying to raise here. I'm very much worried about two items in the body of the report. The crude oil production per day, 148 million barrels per day as we put it here, and the exchange rate of the dollar at 379 naira. I would like to have how you arrive at this too. Why? Because the naira as of today is above what is quoted here. And if what is quoted here, as lawmakers, if we cannot defend the naira here, I'm afraid before end of December, naira will be 500 naira and it continue going ahead. What measure do you think we can adopt to stabilize the naira and protect it? Because all economic indices are making. Sir, let me finish, sir. I know official rate. The official rate given by the government or by the CBN must have, or shall have. Let me finish, sir. CBN shall come up with how to protect the naira. It's going down daily from the official rate it is given. It's going down daily, sir. We can't continue to allow it going that way. The way it is going, it will hit 500 naira before December. CBN must come up with a clear policy. The policies we know, sir. I don't want to open up to some other things. The CBN is a culprit. It must protect the naira. It must protect the naira. If it gives it at 379, let the difference be not more than 10 naira. Not more than 10 naira. It's doable. Thank you, sir.
CBN.
I remain Honorable Victor Wokolo, honorable colleagues. Well, I agree with him. He shares the plight of Nigerians and my own plight over the rate of naira. But let's understand one thing, that what you are talking about, we can't keep fighting our exchange rate politically. We must allow these things to go by the market forces of demand and supply, as is obtainable over every institution. I know it is painful, but let me also say something. There's what we call spot, and there's what we call forward. Let's understand those two terms before we begin to talk about what is happening in central bank, so that we always be at the right path with the professionals outside there. As well, submit, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's another debate for another day. We're talking about the stability of the naira, which will have nothing to do with the benchmark or the exchange rate for this, for the purpose of the MTF. So we'll go to. So we have two recommendations. John said, information. Okay. And then, of course, Sarah was ready.
Thank you, my respected chairman and colleagues. From the explanation given by Chairman Banking and Currency, when you talk about forces of demand and supply, why are you are regulating, you are talking about forces of demand and supply. Why are you fixing benchmark 367, 360? We are talking about demand and supply. Let the market be free. We cannot be managing our currency the way we are managing it. You are fixing benchmark. You are talking about forces of demand and supply. How do you manipulate forces of demand and supply? By fixing the benchmark and giving the rate and both the lower and the upper. Each time we raise this issue, you will be defending CBN. How? You are holding the foreign exchange. You are talking about supply. What are the sources of supply of foreign Nigeria currency? How many of it?
Honorable Johnson, thank you. Like I said, this is considering MTF. I don't think we should open a debate on the exchange rate, and there must be a benchmark, at least as far as MTF is concerned. There has to be a benchmark. Sotomi has been shaking his head vigorously, but I don't want us to open up this debate for now. Maybe a motion on that, a standalone motion, will be adequate. Honorable Sada.
Mr. Chairman, on recommendation 1, I just want to inquire from the Chairman Committee on Finance that they said they're going to conduct a detailed analysis of the MDAs that are not supposed to be on the budget, or partially they are supposed to be in the budget. Now, in a couple of days, the budget is going to be laid. I don't know whether they have this analysis, because it will help ease off some resources, and then it will reduce the deficit if we can have an analysis of these agencies so that we knock them off completely from the budget line. But if we don't have this analysis coming next 2-3 weeks, then we'll end up giving money to agencies that are not supposed to be funded by the government. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our observation during the interactive session we had with agencies is the fact that most of the agencies that are receiving cost of collection, for example, let's give FRS. Mr. Chairman, you know that FRS has over 2,000 staff, and their personnel and everything is within like 100 billion. Whereas agencies as NIMASA and Co have like 400 or 500 staff, and they spent over 300 billion. So something is wrong, and it cut across nearly all the agencies. And we observe, sir, that the rate of expenditure, and in fact the salary scale some of these agencies use for their staff are far higher than others in the same government. So we're having government within a government. We are having agencies that are funding themselves within the government to the detriment of the national budget. So what we are suggesting is the fact that we do a comprehensive analysis. It might not be applicable to this 2021 budget because of the time frame, whereby majority of these agencies are put on cost of collection. So if they have 7% cost of collection, you limit yourself to the 7% cost of collection. And a situation whereby our law says they should remit 25% of their surplus. That is where they hide. 25. For example, if FRS were not to be on cost of collection, it will be remitted 25% of about 400 billion it generates every month. So 400 billion of surplus. After spending all the money they want to spend, they now remit 25% of surplus. What is a surplus to an agency? There's never a surplus. They determine what is surplus to them. Even though the FRA has defined what surplus is, they go around it and spend the money. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the situation we find ourselves in this country, we should not be borrowing money. If all these, our acts are amended, the best approach will have been remove all, the so-called revenue generating agencies, let them bring their budgets to us, we pass it, and finance will release the money every month. That's the best approach. But some say, no, the bureaucracies will not allow that to happen. As far as we are concerned, Mr. Speaker, you have a DPR, you have NNPC, you have CBN, you have all of them. They don't remit what they are supposed to remit. And if we don't wake up, we'll continue to be having this deficit funding, and we must be borrowing to fund the budgets. That is the essence. So if the House allow us, we do the analysis, and then for 2022, we will have submitted it well in advance for us to consider and approve. Thank you.
Please, Honorable Faleke, Chairman of Finance, bring the necessary amendment to tighten these loopholes. Very important. Yeah.
Yes, just further emphasis on what he said. The point to make is that this recommendation is also actually in the recommendations section B as so described. So I think we should start considering. But the 25% that of surplus to be remitted, I don't think is a matter of law. It's a matter of secular. It's a matter of secular. So it's a low-hanging fruit. So there's no act per se that has to be amended in some instances.
The act says they can spend their money. The IGR. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, sir, the laws we make here should be made towards improving the situation of Nigeria. But when acts of establishing agencies are brought, when you look at their revenue and expenditure, we give them the approval to spend their revenue.
Yes, what Honorable Toby said that it's not a statute, but it is by law, because I remember in the 7th or 8th Assembly we had this issue with NNPC, and the minister at that time did let us know that you are the ones that made the law that allowed us to do this. She actually, that was where she hid under that, the leader of the House.
Thank you, Honorable Chairman, Deputy Chair, my honorable colleagues. Mr. Speaker, mine is just like a plea. Looking at the sensitivity of the process before us at the moment, Mr. Speaker. And also, you remember this morning in our meeting, we have been communicated that there will be restriction of movement as from 2 p.m. around the national, the Secretariat.
Secretariat.
In the light of the 60th anniversary that is coming up, security arrangements will be tightened up here. I want to plead with honorable members. Why I appreciate genuinely very intelligent contributions of members trying to really do a lot of changes in our fiscal responsibility acts and fiscal administration. Let us resolve all these academics for now. And we now take it up at a more appropriate time so that we will not allow this document to suffer, because it's going to be predicated on the presentation of the budget by Mr. President next week.
I plead with members to please allow us go through these provisions as long as they can be taken for now. And all other observations, perhaps the Speaker and the relevant committees will now provide a more appropriate platform for us to discuss that in the interest of the nation. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, Honorable Deputy Chairman, my distinguished colleagues, I plead with you in Nigeria's interest, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Leader of the House, for your intervention. I think very germane issues have been raised on the floor of the House, and I think without much ado, we'll give the chairman of we'll give the Finance Committee the marching orders to bring out all these necessary amendments so that we can give proper legal backing to plug in the loopholes. So we'll go straight to 8.0, the recommendations. Recommendation 1, carried. 2, recommendation 3, 5.
Speaker.
Which one? 6 or 5?
6.
6.
Yeah.
We've hit the gavel on 5. So 6. What is that?
Yeah, it's 6. Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues. From 6, it is very apparent that 4.28 trillion, almost a quarter of the budget, is to be borrowed. And we are continually increasing the quantum of the budget. Why don't we cut our quota according to our size, stop the borrowing, and make sure that we do the needful as recommended by the chairman? Make sure we save money from the agencies. Instead of adding 4.28 trillion to our debt burden, which we already has increased by almost $22 million. 22 billion as at the last time. So my thinking is that this item 6 should be deleted. There should be no borrowing. Let's go to do the needful as recommended by the chairman.
Yeah.
Go to the agencies, recover additional money.
Yes.
To make sure that we operate on prudent grounds. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very good observation. Unfortunately, by the time you begin to collate and to do, as you put it, the needful, it's a question of time. The country has to move on. The country has to move on. I don't think if you want to do a thorough job in terms of collation, amendment, and all of those things, minimum, I'm sure, 6 months before we can put all those things together. Meanwhile, what happens? And we don't even know how much they will be able to gather to meet this 4.8 trillion. So it's a question of putting like Falike said, it may not be necessary for the next year's budget, but this coming budget, we may need to maintain the status quo. So recommendation 6, 7. Which mistake? There's an arithmetical mistake. There's an error. Okay, I think there's an error in the calculation. Is 7, and subject to the clerical error being corrected, 7 is carried. Subject to the clerical error, the figure. Thank you. 8, 9. Where did you come in? Good idea. Okay.
8.
Yeah. Let me just clarify this on 7. No? We've already said it, but just for emphasis, the figures, I think there's a difference between whether it's 13.01 or 13.08. So subject to clarification, that is carried. Whatever the figure is, you are allowed to change it. At least the House has approved that. Okay, so what's your observation, please? 8.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Honorable Gudaji Kazauri, representing Kazoraro Niguwa Mkwashi. I'm from Jigawa State. Mr. Speaker, my observation is the capital. This, we have abundance of projects, and we need development. I see 20 billion capital. That is what is, my heart starts beating, sir. Because this our government, this is the 2021, 2022 is the only time that we do project before 2023. And we have abundant projects. Abundant projects, sir. But I see 20 billion.
Yeah, it's too small?
It's too small.
For 20 billion for what?
Is it?
What is the 20 billion for?
The figure I saw here, sir.
It's for what?
Special intervention capital.
Special intervention. Not for the whole capital.
Okay, not
no, not for the whole. It's for special
intervention.
SIP. So you're okay with that?
Okay, I'm okay, sir.
Very good. So 8, carried. 9, 10, 11. Honorable Toby, any objection to 22, to 23? Honorable Toby, any objection? 26, 27, 8. Honorable Toby, 30. Oh, sorry, 30. So the 9.0 recommendation 1, 2. Which one? Which one?
If you look at it properly, yeah.
I think I will hit the gavel on 2.
No, just a moment.
No, we hit the gavel. 3.
It is for our common interest. I've discussed with Chairman.
Okay, bring a motion for rescission.
Mr. Speaker.
Bring a motion for rescission.
Mr. Speaker.
Bring a motion for rescission. We already hit the gavel.
I'm moving.
Is there an observation?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, that you have counseled yourself to listen to the plight of Nigerians.
Recommendation 3.
Because,
3.
Mr. Speaker.
4.
Mr. Speaker. Point of order, Mr.
You had an opportunity, you decided to throw jabs at the chair.
We cannot approve
conclusion. The committee expresses, out of it's okay, we'll talk about it later. We'll talk about it later, it's okay, don't worry.
Leader,
it's all right. The
mislead.
leader of the house is...
Let him not mislead. 2 is very important. We should delete luxury vehicles. You better do.
You are St. Peter. Toby is on his own. What on me? Right, Honorable Chairman. Toby, please. You know, Toby is not only a PDP member, he's a red cap PDP member. So those of them are very dangerous people. You need to be careful with him. You know, we are PDP members and we are PDP plus red cap. Right, Honorable Chairman, honorable members, I rise to move that the House revert to plenary to report progress. I so move.
Thank you, Honorable Toby. Please second.
Subject to the Mr. Speaker qualification that we will talk later on the legislate, I hereby second.
So thank you. Those in support, aye. Those against, say nay. Ayes have it. House reverts to plenary. Honourable colleagues, the House and the Committee of Supply consider the report of the Committees on Finance, Appropriation and National Planning and Economic Development on the 2021 to 2023 Medium-Term Expenditure Framework and Fiscal Strategy paper and approved new recommendations A1 I'll just change it. So, yeah, the House approved the recommendations. The recommendations were divided into two recommendations, category A and recommendation category B. We approved the recommendations under A, all recommendations under A, and recommendation, what's this? 8 was approved subject to clarification of figures therein. We also approved recommendations in under B, 9 to 30, and under B, 1 to 10 of the report. I invite the leader of the House that we adopt the report and the recommendations of the Committee on Supply.
Yes, your mic, sir. Okay, it's on. Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, honorable members. Ado Dogwa is my name. Mr. Speaker, I represent the good people of Dogwa, Tujungwada Federal Constituency. Honorable members, I'm from Kano State. I rise to move that the House adopt the report of the Committee of Supply as reported in plenary. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I so move.
Those in support, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. Ayes have it. Time for adjournment. All right, it's time for us to adjourn the House. The leader of the House, I think we are adjourning till when? Till Wednesday. So there will be no sitting on Tuesday. Because we have the retreat, don't forget, Monday and Tuesday. So, leader.
Okay, thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I think by the strength of the clarification you have given, Mr. Speaker, I rise to now second the motion for adjournment as moved by the Honorable Speaker. that the House do adjourn to Wednesday, 8th of October 2020, in the light of the presidential engagements we are going to have on Tuesday and Wednesday. Yes,
Leader, you got
Monday,
the date wrong.
Monday and Wednesday, sir.
Leader, you got the date wrong.
Yeah. Sir, you have moved. I'm seconding. What?
I'm not allowed to move the adjournment. Leader is trying to be.
Thank you. No, I don't want to be Toby the second, sir. I'm sorry about that. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I rise to move that this House do adjourn to Wednesday, the 8th day of October, 7th day of October, 2020 at 11 o'clock. Mr. Speaker, I so move. Thank you.
Can your sparring partner for today, second, he knows himself. The sparring partner to the leader, please second. Toby, were you not the one sparring with the leader today?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, my name is Toby Okechukwu. I represent an area of Ojiriba Federal Constituency. I'm still Toby Okechukwu, not sparring partner, but I hereby move that the House adjourn as moved by the House Leader.
Okay.
I'm seconded.
Huh?
This is Kano Red Cap.
Okay, so motion for adjournment moved by the leader of the House, Honorable Al-Hassan Dogwa, seconded by his sparring partner. Those in support, please say aye. Those against, please say nay.